North Carolina lawmakers say they want to cut taxes. Our next guest labels the state tax cut a must. He explained why in a recent column at CarolinaJournal.com. Ray Nothstine is opinion editor for Carolina Journal. And basically, the reason why you think that a tax cut is a must is because of what we have dealt with ever since this COVID-19 pandemic struck North Carolina.
Right. There's been so many just prohibitions and lockdowns for citizens, residents across the state of North Carolina that the producers, the people who've been working, they need a tax cut, and they were overcharged. I mean, if you're overcharged in your federal taxes, you get a refund. So to me, it seems like you should get a refund from the state with a $6 billion surplus. To me, it's just common sense. I mean, they're increasing spending. The budget will increase spending. We've always been doing that, right, with baseline budgeting everywhere in every state and the federal government, of course. So if you're going to have spending increases, it seems like the surplus should be sent back to the residents.
You remind us that sometimes we forget every tax dollar collected by the government comes by way of production and property from the citizenry. So allowing people to keep more of their own earnings is a moral good.
Right. There's a great, for anybody who's read Calvin Coolidge's biography, or maybe I think it's mentioned in Amity Shlage's book on Coolidge, but his dad was a tax collector in Vermont. That was one of his jobs. He owned a store, but he was also a tax collector. And he talks about that in his autobiography. He would, this is before withholdings, right? I mean, he would go around and watch his dad collect some of these taxes, and it had a profound effect on him. I mean, it made him think that, and witness that people have to actually sacrifice to give up part of their pay and their income. And withholding has kind of darkened that a little bit, or made it a little less clear. Imagine if you had to pay all of your taxes at the end of the year or at the beginning of the next year. I mean, if you had to write one big check to the IRS and to the state of North Carolina or to a city or local government, if you pay those taxes, imagine the tax revolt in this country that would occur. But, I just think that we need to be mindful of the sacrifice that requires people to pay taxes.
You also, in this column, which has the headline, State Tax Cut a Must, after citizens told to sacrifice, you foresee that people on the other side of this debate are going to, as you say, lash out with their partisan chicanery, talking about how this is not the time to cut taxes, that we need to spend more.
Right. I don't think this should really be a partisan issue. Republicans had the foresight here to go after a greater percentage of tax relief for middle and lower income residents across the state. I think that was smart. Bill Clinton, Democrat, was a big champion, right, of middle-class tax cuts. It ended up not working out that way, as it usually does a lot of times when you champion tax cuts. Sometimes it doesn't occur, especially at the federal level. But he was a big champion during his 1992 presidential campaign of middle-class tax cuts. Democrats have done that before, of course, campaigned on middle-class tax cuts. So this should be right up their alley. This is something that I feel like they should embrace. This is not really a partisan issue to me. You have a surplus, return that back to the people.
You also mentioned the contrast on the budget management by the Republicans who've been leading the government here, especially the legislature in North Carolina, compared to people on both sides of the political aisle in Washington, D.C., such a different story about how they're handling things.
Yeah, it's really kind of a depressing tale in many respects, because you look at the federal government, $28.5 trillion in debt, and just more and more spending. It just increases with nobody willing to pump the brakes, no discipline. And here in North Carolina, we've had a much different story, obviously. We're in a unique position to provide a tax cut while we're probably going to see federal taxes go on the uptick for a while, which is depressing to think about. But, this is what happens when you just spend so much. And if there isn't tax increases, then you have inflationary policies as well, which is really a hidden tax. So you see just a wide difference between what has happened at the federal level in North Carolina, where you have responsible spending increases along with consistent tax relief, and at the federal level, of course, just saddling people with debt and really sending them, kind of putting a millstone around their neck and hanging them into servitude long term to service that debt.
One of your more interesting points near the end is that demanding more spending from a revenue surplus should ring hollow The good news is it will for most. You get the sense that a lot of people get this, that this is the time for tax cut, not to increase spending.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think they've seen the policies work in North Carolina. And, one of the things I pointed out was North Carolina has made all these improvements on think tank surveys and foundations. But I think people generally, this has gone on long enough that they see the economic boon from that has that the state has benefited from. They know people are pouring in from other states, escaping high tax states like New York, so Illinois, another state like too burdensome of taxes, New Jersey, and they're pouring into North Carolina. People know all of this. The word is out. It's been out for a while. So I think a lot of the class warfare stuff just rings a little bit hollow now, and it's not going to work.
If you'd like to learn more, you can go to carolinajournal.com and find the column with the headline, State Tax Cut a Must, After Citizens Told to Sacrifice. Its author is Ray Nothstine, opinion editor at Carolina Journal. Thanks so much.
Thank you.